And a very pleasant good evening, folks. It is Monday, October 1st, 2018. Yes, we are, in fact, in October. And you are listening to the Connoisseurs of Wrestling. It's our Hall of Fame induction episode for the month of October. And we got the full house in store for you here tonight. George, TakersMinion, LegendsLover, and myself, Biff Kensington, here to talk about the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal. Oh, what a rush indeed. Very pleasant good evening, but we do need to start off tonight, guys, with some very late breaking news, some sad news, actually, a very tragic loss today for everyone here. It's, you know, I hate doing this, but it's part of our job as members of the media to cover these tragedies like this, so we're going to do our best. I would just like to pay respect to the Chicago Cubs, whose NL Central title hopes died today. It was a long battle. Long battle.
Wasn't that long, my friend.
Bite me.
They succumbed finally to...
it was a very quick-acting illness. They were 2.5 games up a week ago.
The Milwaukee flu is what failed them, unfortunately. They'll be interred in Coors Field in Colorado.
They play at home tomorrow.
Yeah, but the Rockies will take their ashes with them after they beat them. So,
I'm telling you, Biff, are you a gambling man? You gambling?
I'm legally not required to answer that question.
I'm just saying, I kind of like Colorado at plus 150. Maybe a little hedge may be in order there. I may have to do a little investment on that. You know.
Let me put
George, you're turning against our team. How dare you?
I call it hedging the heart.
It's reverse psychology is what he's doing.
I hedge the hearts, Biff.
If I had my druthers,
okay, George.
If I had my druthers, Atlanta, Chicago, Boston, and Oakland would be in the respective league championship series. And we have music playing at the end of the night.
Yeah, she's telling us we need to get on subject.
I have not yet begun to get off subject. Thank you very much. This is my prerogative as the opening segment. There's plenty of wrestling matches in the history of Chicago.
Biff?
Yes?
When the Red Sox blow an 8th inning lead because they have one good reliever, I'm going to remember this conversation. That's all I'm going to say.
And I'm going to remember you as a former host of the Connoisseurs of Wrestling.
Can we talk about some badass Chicagoans?
The monsters of the Midwest. Let's talk about some good stuff here.
Let's talk about two badasses. we as a show we love badasses, do we not, team?
I would agree with that.
We love badass, and who was more badass in their heyday than the most successful tag team in the history of professional wrestling? Yeah, that's the claim. I'm coming in hot at 7:06 Central Time, and I am saying the Road Warriors are the most successful tag team in the history of this business. Who's going to dispute me?
Well, we're getting the debate going early tonight. Okay.
I mean, in terms of drawing ability, in terms of success, in terms of charisma, in terms of dollars that they earned.
Well, let's define a tag team. Are we including tag teams
We're talking two dudes.
Two dudes, not three
Two
units.
dudes. Or ladies.
Not 3-man units and not factions. We're just talking about 2-man deals.
2 men. Or ladies.
No.
And I would like to keep it to North America, because if you talk about tag teams, one that is near and dear to my heart would be the Crush Gals in Japan, who revolutionized an entire business, and in terms of success as a tag team. But in terms of North American teams, they're in their prime. I'd say they were the most successful tag team on a worldwide basis in the history of the business. From 84 to 87, maybe 88.
No, 80. They started, I think it was in 82, and you figured they were a tag team the whole time. They never split up.
Nope. Which is a rare thing these days, unfortunately.
They had their separate matches, but they still.
Well, let's define what constitutes success as a tag team. There's 2 levels to this conversation. There's the implicit success, which is tag team championships, notoriety, important feuds as a team. And then there was productivity, which teams spin out major stars. Now, you would be hard-pressed to say that the Rockers were a successful tag team in the sense that they never were crowned as tag champions in the WWF. They were always kind of a step behind the Hart Foundation or the Legion of Doom when they came around, or Demolition. But the Rockers are probably remembered today because they spun out Shawn Michaels, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. So there's two different levels here. We could talk about the success of a tag team as a tag team, or the success as a tag team in creating single stars, which for much of the history of the business, that's what tag teams were designed to do. Spin out single stars from amongst the ranks.
But this one here is a tag team. That was a success for a tag team their whole career.
Yeah, this was a tag team put together because they weren't never going to be single stars, but you could make hay with them as a pairing, and oh boy, did they actually draw a hell of a lot of money with this pairing.
Could the term print money kind of fits this tag team?
It's when you combine their drawing ability, combine with their in-ring aptitude, combine with their star power and their charisma, combine with their impact. I'm taking all of that into account when I talk about them as the most successful tag team of all time.
Yeah.
And to me, in terms of they're in the conversation for all time, and I think I have to make them my number one in terms of best, which obviously is a very subjective term, and everyone has their own parameters. In terms of best tag team of all time, I think that they are my number one.
Well, I want to read off the list. I want to read off the list right quick of some of the promotions. This is not a comprehensive list of the promotions they worked for. This is just the promotions they won championships in. Okay, so I just want to read this off and let it sink in as kind of a who's who of all-time great wrestling territories. All Japan Pro Wrestling, they won the tag title there. The American Wrestling Association, the AWA out of Minneapolis, they won championship gold there. Georgia Championship Wrestling, they won 4 titles there. Jim Crockett Promotions, which is also WCW, they won championships there, both the World Tag Team Championship and the 6-Man Championship, and the 86 Crockett Cup. Also won the Iron Team Tournament from Starrcade 89, so quite a lot there. The WWF, they won gold there. New Japan Pro Wrestling, they won tag team gold there. They won gold in Mexico. They won gold in Europe. They won gold everywhere they worked. You're talking about a tag team that has more championships in their trophy case than most professional sports teams do over a century of work. They were putting in the business, and they made a lot of money, and they won a lot of gold. And they made a lot of fans happy for a long period of time. And when you're talking about tag team wrestling, there's no greater decade for tag team wrestling in the business than the 1980s. We can debate that. Y'all would be wrong if you want to debate me on it. I don't think you will. I think we're all in agreement on that. The 80s were the gold standard for tag team wrestling in the business. The Road Warriors arguably were one of the most recognizable and one of the most dominant, certainly one of the most dominant, but arguably one of the most recognizable and talented tag teams of the decade. And so if you rule the roost in the 80s, it says a awful lot about where your standing is in the all-time ranks, in my opinion.
And you look at where they started. The AWA with Vern Gagne. And because their trainer, wasn't it Eddie Sharkey?
Yes, it was. And that again, here we go again.
With Vern Gagne.
Vern Gagne is involved with all 3 members of the Road Warriors, and that's including Paul Ellering because he was trained by Gagne and Sharkey, both. So, yeah, again, Biff, we've talked about this several times. Vern Gagne, again, putting his finger upon somebody in wrestling, and look what they do.
Well, the interesting thing about this, too, is this actually brings up an interesting time to talk about one of the rare occurrences in the territory era, cooperation between promoters. The Road Warriors were both from Minnesota. They were both in that general region when they were discovered. But there's a common misconception that the NWA was their starting point. They actually began in Georgia Championship Wrestling, but they were on loan from Vern. They were basically sit down to get experience in order to prepare them for the AWA. And so it's kind of interesting how there was a little bit of cross-promotional assistance between the territories. It wasn't all about, fighting wars like you would see with Vince McMahon Jr. There actually was a time when Georgia and Minneapolis, or Charlotte and New Orleans, or
Charlotte and Minneapolis, because Ric Flair.
Oh, Charlotte and Minneapolis.
You know what amazes me is that Hawk came from the same cradle in Minneapolis that produced Kurt Hennig, Rick Rude, Tom Zenk, that generation. I mean, there must have been something in the water in late 1970s Minneapolis or Robbinsdale or wherever that had produced so many substantially great professional wrestlers.
Yeah, it's called Vertigo.
Yeah.
Hawk and Animal, they were discovered at the same time. They worked at the same bar. They were both bouncers.
Yeah.
That's another common theme among some of the big stars, especially in the AWA. How many big stars were bouncers at one point in time?
It's testament to how different people came to wrestling then than they do now.
Yeah.
Like back then, very few people who came to wrestling were fans of wrestling. They were failed football players or bouncers or gym rats, and everyone was like, "Oh, you should, you're a big dude. You'd be good at professional wrestling." Nowadays, it's all people who grew up wrestling fans who had a backyard fed or whatever and did backyard wrestling, and then at 18 joined a wrestling school because they love Shawn Michaels or whomever,
Oh yeah, one of the biggest ones. One of the biggest ones that was a fan of Shawn Michaels was freaking Kevin Steen.
Yeah, but it's
Kevin Owens.
It's so much different. It's so much different now as opposed to then. The route a person takes to become a professional.
Well, look at how hard it was to get into the business back then. A lot of the people like Eddie Sharkey and all that, Vern Gagne and all them, they trained people, yeah, but it was very hard to get in. I mean, they would basically work you to death.
Paul
Ellering was him and one other person, I think, that survived out of 30 that initially started training under Vern. 2 survived. They didn't want new people. They didn't want you there.
No, they certainly did not.
Well, the reason for that is because there was, even though there were more places to work in that era, people were still very protective of their spot because, the money wasn't the same type of cash that we're talking about in the business now. Like if you're a mid-carder in the WWF, that would be tantamount to making main event level money in any territory of the 80s, with some exceptions. Charlotte, you could do better. Georgia, at its peak in the 70s, you could do better. The AWA, New York, etc. But for most of the time, $100,000 a year, that was way more money than most guys were making in the territory era. So, there was very much a real threat to your livelihood if you lost your spot. That's why it was a meritocracy. You had to work your ass off. And that's why I think wrestling was generally better further back you go. I mean, it may not be as flashy or as agile, but the people are smarter about how they're working in the business because, hey, if you're not entertaining the fans, if you're not giving them something to come back and see every week, your ass is getting replaced. And you're going to go drive a truck for a living. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I mean.
It ain't wearing shoulder pads and selling out stadiums.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's go work at a textile factory. Go drive a truck. Go, work at a store or something. You're going to get out of here. You ain't going to wrestle. So.
And these 2 were, like we said, they were bouncers, but they were powerful enough, big enough where they were noticed.
Eddie Sharkey asked them. They didn't ask Eddie. Eddie asked them.
That tells you all you need to know.
So.
And then you figure their manager started off as a wrestler.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that Paul Ellering started as a wrestler. Why he became a manager is he had 2 very, very severe knee injuries.
Okay.
And you figure he started out as a power lifter. The guy could lift.
He's
deadlift 745 pounds.
he's still jacked at his advanced age. He's still ripped to shreds.
But
Paul Ellering.
the guy is small. Except for his shoulders. He's a small guy.
In that era, that mattered.
He's a small guy, but he could deadlift 745 pounds. That's a lot of weight for a small guy to lift.
A lot of weight for a big guy to lift.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
I mean, shit. You know, you look at Paul Ellering. He's a small guy, maybe 225 pounds, maybe.
And he's short.
Yeah. He's maybe 6 foot.
Not even.
It's funny you mentioned that he's 6 foot and 220. That was short back then. You look at a guy like Shawn. You look at a guy like Shawn Michaels, who was what 6'1", and he was a little guy back then.
Yeah.
But nowadays, 6'1" and 220. I mean, you're a giant in professional wrestling. It feels like.
Well, shit. The Road Warriors themselves, an animal, 6'2", 305.
Yep.
Hawk, 6'3", 270. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Those are big, powerful men. Period. It's just like, oof.
And then when you put Paul next to him, he's a tiny guy compared to those two.
Yeah, he is. You look at him, he's tiny compared. Look at him. Look at Paul with Akam and Rezar. How small he looked to those two.
But Paul Ellering always reminded me, especially in the 80s, of like a biker version of Wayne Rogers. Like that charismatic but kind of cool.
By the way, great shout.
I'm a MASH fan. I have to throw MASH records every month or so.
Well, if you look at Paul Ellering too, when he was wrestling, you know who his manager was?
I do not. Who was it?
Jimmy Hart, Mouth of the South.
No kidding.
Yep.
He was managed by Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart.
One of these days, we're going to have to just sit down and do a full episode of Jimmy Hart. I don't think people appreciate how good of a manager he was. When they only go by what they saw in WWF or WCW, they only got the caricature of Jimmy Hart. When he was doing his thing in Memphis, I mean, he was up there in the upper echelon of best managers of all time.
Agreed.
I agree.
But we got to also give love to Paul Ellering as one of the best of all time, too, because I don't know of too many babyface tag teams who got over with like truly legendary managers. Sometimes you would see a legendary manager take on a babyface tag team, but this was actually, you know, a full package where the manager wasn't bigger than the team. It was just part of the team.
Well, also, a lot of people don't realize, not only was he a babyface manager with the Legion of Doom Road Warriors, he was their life manager. He actually negotiated their contracts.
Yes.
He set up their bookings. He set up their flights, their hotel rooms. He took care of their money. He did everything for them.
What we're failing to mention about Paul Ellering is this. Paul Ellering is Mensa intelligence. He's a member of the Mensa. He is a member of Mensa. That tells you just how intelligent he is. You know, I know you saw it as well as I did in carrying the Wall Street Journal to the ring with the Road Warriors in Atlanta. He actually read that paper. He helped Hawk and Animal with their investments. That's why they're you know, God rest his soul, Hawk's family is loaded because of Ellering's investment advice that he gave these guys.
That's why I call him Wayne Rogers. Wayne Rogers did the same thing later in life. He was like really known for his investments. But there's something I gotta piggyback off of that because it's funny you mentioned the Wall Street Journal. If you go on YouTube, I'm not sure if it's still there. It used to be there. Someone uploaded a home video of, I believe it was Jimmy Garvin's, He had a video camcorder, and he was recording backstage footage from the 1988 Great American Bash. And this was, I mean, we're talking, you know, the last months of the Crockett family owning the company. So this is very much a peek behind the curtain from the dying days of Jim Crockett Promotions. But of course, the Road Warriors were there. The Dr. Death, Steve Williams, Sting, Lex Luger, Jim Cornette, the Midnight Express, Dusty Rhodes makes an appearance. And it's funny you mentioned Paul Ellering, because when Paul Ellering does make an appearance on the home video, what is he doing? He's reading the Wall Street Journal. I kid you not.
Living the gimmick.
Living the gimmick. It wasn't. It wasn't.
I don't think.
No.
But the thing is, it wasn't a gimmick for him.
Yeah, it was a shoot for him. That was his life.
That was his life. He was He made sure that the Road Warriors were financially set. One of the things they say, when Paul Ellering split with the Road Warriors for that, what was it, 2-3 years, they gave him. He managed another team for a while. He had a hard time with facing the Road Warriors with their team, saying anything bad, because his life was so impacted with them.
Yeah.
That he had a hard time managing another team. That they turned around and put him right back with the Road Warriors.
Could the Road Warriors have done what they did without Paul Ellering? Yes. Could Paul Ellering have forged a solid career without managing the Road Warriors? Yes. But the three of them together created a package that really became quite special. And we can talk about some of the different stops along the way. They've been everywhere. The Road Warriors wrestled in pretty much any promotion you could think of. But I can't think of a better example of demonstrating just how special a unit these three were together than by going to the 1987 Great American Bash in the Omni in Atlanta, the very first War Games match. Paul Ellering joined his tag team in the match and actually precipitated the conclusion of the match by bringing in a spiked gauntlet, because wrestling used to be badass kids.
Yeah, that was against the Four Horsemen and J.J. Dillon.
Yeah, and poor J.J. Dillon. Oh,
Is this who? Wait, so it's the Road Warriors and Ellering, and who the other two members?
Dusty Rhodes and Nikita Koloff.
Against the Four.
I'm gonna ask a question that I'm 99% sure I know the answer to. Is this match worth watching?
Yes.
Let me drop the first F-bomb in Connoisseurs of Wrestling history. Fuck yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I knew that going in.
Wait.
I've never seen it.
Whoa. You've never seen the first War Games match?
Pretty sure I haven't. I remember. That's not the one that has Zbyszko, right? No, that's like the second or third one.
That's 92. Yeah.
Yeah, because you figure this one, Paul Ellering was actually wrestling.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've seen it.
Okay, you need
You
to
have homework tonight, dear. You have homework this week, George.
Looks like I know what I'm doing.
Homework tonight. Get your ass off of this show and go watch it now. What the hell?
I'll see y'all in 45 minutes.
Yeah, we'll see you later. Let me put it to you this way. I'm not going to spoil
play-by-play.
I'm not going to spoil much of the match, although if you've seen any of Crockett from 86, 87, you know how jacked those crowds get in Charlotte.
Yeah. It's so nice.
Within the first 5 minutes of the match, there is two gratuitous ball shots and Dusty Rhodes flipping the bird to the Horseman inside the ring.
Dusty Earl Thomas.
Yeah, exactly. It was violent, bloody. It was awesome.
Yeah.
George.
Testosterone fest.
George,
right,
this is a serious match of the week candidate for your other show.
It really is.
I will watch it. I'll watch it tomorrow.
And the good thing for you is that if you enjoy this one, there's plenty of other Road Warriors War Games matches out there. In 1989 comes to mind. The Freebirds and the Samoans. The Samoan SWAT team and the Freebirds taking on Steve Williams, the Midnight Express. Yes. Steve Williams, Dr. Death Steve Williams, the Midnight Express, and the Road Warriors
Good God.
To take on the Fabulous Freebirds and the Samoan SWAT team.
Yeah, that's another good one.
Sounds up my alley.
From the greatest show of all time, the '89 Great American Bash.
But if you want to see one where Paul Ellering actually wrestles with this team, then you want to watch the one with them against the Four Horsemen.
Yeah, the very first War Games from
Yeah.
'87. Let me put it to you this way: there's a reason that J.J. Dillon only appears in the first one, and someone replaces him in the second one.
Yeah, he's like, I'm done here.
Well, he tore his shoulder out. So
Oh,
yeah, he got messed up in that match. So, but yeah, that's our recommendation for you for match of the week.
you got it. You got it.
One of the most violent and one of the greatest matches of the 80s. Definitely one of the best cage match concepts.
Yeah, you figure 8 wrestlers and 2 managers.
I'll check it out. I'll check it out tomorrow, guys. What show is this on? 87 Bash?
It was originally the Great American Bash 87. You can find the full Great American Bash on Daily Motion,
Okay.
including the Womp-Ass theme song that they used for the VHS tape opening.
Nice.
If you go to the network, they should have a War Games collection where the actual match is. Now, I don't know if they've edited it at all, but Daily Motion, I know, is the original Crockett release VHS tape, so you can find it there.
And all of its bloody glory.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, there's 10 guys in the match, like 9 of them bleed. So,
Oh, the 10th guy was a slacker then, sounds like.
I'm pretty sure it was Paul Ellering, and that's because he was using the spiked gauntlet on people's eyes. So.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, yeah, okay.
It's October, folks. It's time to get bloody and gory. It's that time of the year. Frankly, we're talking about War Games. We're talking about some of the other legendary matches that the Road Warriors have participated in over the years. They were actually the feature attraction of Starrcade 86 with respect to their match with the Midnight Express. This is another famous match, the scaffold match. Jim Cornette replaces J.J. Dillon and the manager that gets screwed up by this match, of course. His poor knee has never quite been the same. But, in terms of the scaffold match, anybody have any fond memories of watching the Road Warriors in the NWA from '86?
I heard about it, but I never got to see the match. So.
I remember I have a fond memory, not memory because I was a year and a half old, but I always love watching them just beat the shit out of some hapless jobbers. That was always fun. I know, when they would just find these two poor bastards and they would just kill them, and it was great. I loved it. I miss a good squash match.
You miss the Mulkeys, basically.
I miss the jobbers, the ham and eggers, the guys who would just get the crap kicked out of them and put other people over. Sometimes it'd be good.
I would hardly recommend you watch old episodes of World Championship Wrestling in the Vault from the 80s.
Oh, God, yes. Because the match would be over before it started because the Road Warriors hit the ring, and they just start beating the piss out of the poor jobbers before the bell even rang.
Well, I have to set this up a little bit. In the wrestling business, the term Road Warrior Pop became part of the lexicon just to describe the roof blowing off of the buildings that these guys worked. They were just so over. But even in the studio,
really, were they that over?
They were over. But even over the sound of the roar of the crowd, you could still hear the sound of flesh being pulverized.
Yes. When
they would get in the ring. I know Randy and Bill Mulkey from Anderson, South Carolina, they're kind of local legends. They were legendary jobbers in the NWA. The worst thing that ever happened to them was they actually won a match. And their fan base evaporated after they won a match. But they were tremendous jobbers. They looked like total geeks. And the Road Warriors loved to hear their flesh go splat on the studio floor. They would bench press them out over the top rope, flat back, onto the concrete, just to hear them go thud. And the crowd eat it up with a spoon. They just tortured people. They tormented. And I'm not saying they took liberties with people. I mean, sometimes they threw potatoes, according to Jim Cornette, but they were a badass, ass-kicking tandem. And by God, you took 2 guys in spiked shoulder pads and face paint with Warhawks coming out there talking about beating the shit out of people. People are going to take notice. I would want them on my side.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
they are everything you could ever want in a 80s tag team, 80s wrestling era. They are such a product of their time and place that they are 1980s wrestling.
Well, it's out there on YouTube, and I think it's on the network as well. They did a thing about the Legion of Doom and the Road Warriors / Legion of Doom, where they were in a match against Dick the Bruiser and Baron von Raschke for the damn AWA titles, and the first thing they did was pick Bruiser up, and at that time, Bruiser was one of those untouchable guys, and they picked him up to press, and he goes, "You can't do this to me," and he goes, "Oh yes, we can," and boom, they slammed him to the mat. And
that was as high as Bruiser had been since the night before, and he smoked a doobie.
Bruiser never was involved with that. He loved his drink. Bruiser was a big drinker, as was Crusher, right, honey?
Yep.
Well, in that case, Bruiser hadn't been that high since the 60s. So,
but you know, what are you doing? Was what he was yelling at him, you know, in the ring.
They were a tour de force in the 80s, and it's kind of funny to think about. A lot of people, there's two distinct crowds, well, I should say three. There's three distinct crowds of Road Warriors fans. There's the people that watched them in the 80s as they were coming up. There were the people that first watched them in the 90s when they kind of became a cartoon version of themselves. And then there's the people that have gone back and have seen both eras.
WWF.
Well, we'll get there momentarily. It's one of the next stops. But would it be fair to say that the Road Warriors definitely, although their notoriety continued well into the 90s, they were very much a product of the 80s, and they kind of peaked between 85 and 88.
That's my assertion. Their prime, if you will, was, let's say, 85 to 89 or something in that ballpark. You know?
I would agree with that.
I think that's a fair assessment, guys.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you this much, too. This is coming straight from Jim Cornette as well. The Road Warriors were not popular in the sense that the people that wrestled them knew they were getting their ass kicked in the ring. But they were popular from the perspective that wrestling the Road Warriors got for heel tag teams what was called safe heat. Now, we need to elaborate on this a little bit. Safe heat refers to the ability of a tag team to beat the crap out of the babyfaces without worrying about causing a riot. Because the fans knew the Road Warriors were going to win in the end. So the Midnight Express could go out and destroy the Road Warriors for 30 minutes, and the Road Warriors would shrug it off, press slam them, suplex them, body slam them, pin them, and the fans would go home happy. So babyface tag teams, could take a lesson from the Road Warriors. Just be invincible, and the fans love you. That's basically what it boils down to.
I say this every Thursday on my show. Wrestling isn't complicated, guys. Be invincible when the situation calls for it, and you'll get over.
Yep.
Go on.
I loved their finish. I love the Road Warrior finish. The Doomsday Device.
Great move.
You put a guy up on the shoulder, electric chair, and a lariat off the top rope. Brilliant. Absolutely freaking brilliant.
Well, one thing also for an ending, when you figure Undertaker does a tombstone, what does he do? He's got his tongue hanging out. Hawk has been doing that all the time.
Yep.
Hawk's always got his tongue out.
Yeah. She's right. She's absolutely right. If you look at the matches where they won it, Hawk, he would, he was always the one coming off the ropes. And he would do there'd be the tag, Animal pick him up, put him on the shoulders, lariat off the top rope, and Hawk is laying on him with his tongue sticking out. Doing the same thing Undertaker does. So Undertaker took a page out of their book and made it part of his thing.
Yeah.
It's, once again, people, wrestlers stealing from one another. Damn it.
Okay, now I'm glad you brought that up because this is one of the enduring controversies among old school fans, and is one of the great debates that wrestling fans have been having for eons now. The Road Warriors and copycat tag teams. Now, there are some tag teams that are absolute copycats. Okay,
well, I can name one currently.
Well, one currently, yeah. I'm talking about in the actual era of the Road Warriors.
Demolition.
Demolition was supposed to be a knockoff, yeah.
Well, that's the debate. We have teams like the Powers of Pain that never really did much. Demolition was absolutely built to be a tag team in the vein of the Road Warriors. But I have trouble calling the Road Warriors or Demolition a knockoff of the Road Warriors, given how much success Demolition had on their own.
Yeah.
You know,
you can be a knockoff of something and still be wildly successful. I don't think the existence of one negates the existence of the other. They're not mutually exclusive.
no, I understand that. But what I'm saying is, when you are considered a knockoff, I think that there is an undue amount of scrutiny against your reputation, and your visage, your image, your legacy is somehow lessened because you're not considered an original article, which I don't think is completely fair, because a lot of the greatest stars in wrestling history were drawing inspiration from stars that had come before them. You know, Nature Boy Ric Flair was not the first Nature Boy in professional wrestling. He just so happened to be the best. You know, he drew from Buddy Roberts. He drew from
Gorgeous George
Wagner. You know, he drew from all sorts of inspirations. There's a lot of different wrestlers that were combined to make the Ric Flair package. You look at someone like Steve Austin. Steve Austin, you could absolutely see the influence of someone like a Dick Murdoch in the way Austin would cut his promos. You know, I mean, you're talking about influences ranging across the entirety of the wrestling business. I have problems when someone diminishes Demolition and just calls them, oh, they weren't that special, they were just a Road Warriors knockoff. Well, they may have been built in the vein of the Road Warriors, but Demolition had just as much success for a period of time as the Road Warriors did.
Well,
What was that other team that Paul Ellering managed?
Disciples of the Apocalypse.
Which
DOA.
you don't really hear about anymore.
No, because they were never really Disciples of the Apocalypse, in my opinion, was never really anything to write home about in the first place. They were supposed to be two former Hell's Angels or something or other like that. It just never went over. It never worked.
They were supposed to be the opposite of the Road Warriors. The biggest feud that they had was with the Road Warriors, and it never took.
No.
One of the problems was they were really kind of built for the faction warfare that was going on. They had the four big factions in 96 and 97 WWF. You had the Disciples of the Apocalypse, you had the Nation of Domination, the Truth Commission, you had Los Periquas. It's like
well, I mean, that's because the NWO was so successful, so Vince just decided to do that times 100.
Do every offensive stereotype he could, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Los Periquas was a joke.
Yeah,
But then again, you had LWO and WCW during the time of NWO.
You got the LWO, NWO, Wolfpack, NWO Japan, BWO. I mean, there's
God.
there's all manner of.
At that time, was a big joke.
Now, I think that there's something to be said if you are a successful wrestler or a successful tag team, that you inspire clones of your act across the generation. You mentioned it earlier. The Authors of Pain are very much in the mold of a Road Warrior style tag team.
Yes,
I mean, they had Paul Ellering as their manager in NXT. You couldn't get much more obvious than that. The Ascension were kind of built as the Road Warriors of NXT for a while.
And then when they came to the main roster, were basically buried by Animal and JBL and a few others.
Yeah.
Because they came out and cut a promo against the Road Warriors, which went over like a lead balloon.
Well, you think about it, the Road Warriors, they did it organically. They were faces. When Paul Ellering did the Authors of Pain, they came out as heels.
Well, that's how the Road Warriors started, were heels.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the thing is like Paul Ellering said, he came out as a heel for the first time in 18 years. And the Authors of Pain, it worked in NXT, but it's not really working too much on the main roster. It's too much the same.
I want to pose a trivia question to George. If I'm not
Ooh.
mistaken, George, I think, is the youngest of the connoisseurs. Or if he's, or hell, maybe I'm the youngest. I don't remember.
I'll be 34 in 2 weeks.
Okay, I'm the youngest. But as the second youngest connoisseur, I'm 32, going to be 33 next year. As the youngest of the connoisseurs, I challenge you to a trivia question. The original Road Warriors, managed by Paul Ellering, included Hawk, Animal, and what other two superstars? Can you name them without looking them up?
The original Road Warriors, Hawk, Animal, Precious Paul. I mean, you're not talking the LOD 2000 with Hiredink or whatever his name is, right?
No. We're talking Georgia Championship Wrestling, and I'll give you a hint. I'll give you one hint because one of these names might be a little obscure if you're not a fan of Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Well, one starts with a C.
Well, there's the spoiler, Don Jardine. He was in the original Road Warriors. But there is a particular individual that was a member of the original Road Warriors faction before it became just a tag team. Okay. He wrestled in Mid-South. He wrestled in the WWF. He wrestled in WCW. He wrestled very briefly in ECW.
I've heard of this person. So this person's not obscure.
No, he's not obscure. He was a very popular babyface in the WWF. Then he had what some would argue is one of the greatest heel turns of all time. He was known for his feuds with, among other people, the Honky Tonk Man, Bad News Brown, Macho Man Randy Savage.
Is this the Ultimate Warrior?
I'll give you one more hint.
So that's a no.
He betrayed the Ultimate Warrior to turn heel.
He what? The Ultimate Warrior?
He betrayed the Ultimate Warrior to turn heel.
Oh,
trust me, you'll love this guy.
Betrayed the Ultimate Warrior to turn heel.
Yes, trust me.
Oh
you love this guy. You know him.
Who the hell?
I don't even know.
Who betrayed?
George.
Is it Matt Bourne?
George.
Matt Bourne?
George, listen to me. Trust me. You love this guy.
Oh, I got it. I know who it is.
From Stone Mountain, Georgia, Jake the Snake Roberts was an original member of the Road Warriors.
Oh, man. I did not know that.
Yep. Did you not remember Jake Roberts betraying the Ultimate Warrior?
No.
I
remember Jake. I remember Jake Roberts being the catalyst of the Undertaker's face turn.
Okay. Oh, my friend, you have so much homework this week.
Whose side are you on? Not yours.
That
right?
was one of the, yes, that was, I think that's one of Taker's favorite angles of all time.
It was.
It was awesome. Why wouldn't it be?
And the thing about it is that Undertaker never changed his gimmick.
Nope, didn't have to.
I think the greatest interview segment I've ever seen from the early 90s WWF, with the exception of the Rockers episode of The Barbershop, was the episode of The Funeral Parlor where Jake Roberts locked the Undertaker's hand in a casket and beat him to a pulp with a steel chair, and the Undertaker just calmly getting up and dragging the casket behind him as he stalked Roberts to the backstage. That's badass. I don't care who you are right there. That's straight up epic.
I have a take that is, I have a scorching hot Undertaker take. You ready?
Yeah.
Taker's
no, Takers. You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. You ready?
I heard Taker's posture stiffen up like he's
no. Takers. You're gonna love this. You ready?
Yeah.
People say all the time that the Undertaker gimmick is one of the best gimmicks of all time. I say it's one of the worst gimmicks of all time, and the only reason it worked is because Mark Calloway was so brilliant that he made it work.
That's exactly. You know what? I've said that myself.
Yeah, the gimmick sucks. It should be a disaster. But Mark Calloway is so awesome at being a professional wrestler that he said, "You know what? I'm making this shit work," and it did.
He did. I mean, to think about it, the undead part. No selling a punch to the face. I mean, whoever would have thought of that? Mark Calloway is a genius. when it comes
Absolutely.
to professional. He's an absolute genius.
He is a
Every gimmick he was ever given in professional wrestling, from Texas Red to Undertaker, he has made work.
You know what? Genius is a good word. There are a few wrestlers that I consider wrestling geniuses in that they could make anything work. And he is absolutely one of them. That is a great word for it, my friend.
One of my favorite matches from that era, because this is we're talking between 89 and 92 is really when I cut my teeth for the first time in wrestling. And I was a huge mark for the old Coliseum video tapes. They released, hundreds of them. But there's one match in particular from 1992 that always stuck out to me. It was an 8-man tag team match with the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom, The Undertaker, and the Ultimate Warrior, taking on Ted DiBiase, Erwin R. Shyster, Shawn Michaels, and the Berserker. Now, you talk about a badass foursome on the babyface side. The Ultimate Warrior running around, muscle to the gills, like a madman. The Road Warriors coming out looking like extras from a Mad Max movie. And The Undertaker, who's at the peak of his coolness, as far as I'm concerned. I loved Undertaker throughout the years. I'm a big Undertaker fan. His best look, the coolest he ever looked, in my opinion, was between 91 and 92. That was the best look The Undertaker ever had, in my opinion.
Okay.
And that's just my nostalgia.
With the gloves? With the purple gloves?
Oh, I preferred the gray gloves.
Okay.
The purple gloves, when you got to 94, it was kind of weird. When he went away after the Rumble in 94, he almost changed his look up a little bit. And he kind of closely resembled what he wore in the Attitude Era. Just the way he wore his hair, his beard, and everything. I kind of preferred the stringy red hair. I know we're talking about, appearances like they matter, but
they absolutely matter.
I mean, they matter.
Let's bring it back to the Road Warriors. Would the Road Warriors have been anywhere near as over if they weren't two big jacked dudes with cool shoulder blades, cool shoulder pads,
and mohawks and everything?
And mohawks. Appearances absolutely matter, man. You know this.
Well, the Road Warriors looked like they were extras from like a Motley Crue concert.
Yeah, but however you get over is how you get over.
Oh yeah, I agree, and I think that's what's missing. There's a word that I'm going to use that used to describe wrestling in the '80s, and as soon as I mention it, you're going to immediately know what I'm talking about. Wrestlers used to be bombastic.
Yep,
they used to
have
be
personality,
over the top. I mean, people used to joke about Macho Man Randy Savage promos, wondering how much cocaine he had to take in order to get that jacked up. Well, the Road Warriors were the same way.
Yeah,
they were the exact same way. I mean, Animal.
I used to love the way Hawk would start his promos.
Well,
I mean, what a great way to start a promo.
We have to break here to do the obligatory Hawk impersonation. We heard it at the start of the show. Taker, give us your best. Oh, what a rush!
I can't, but I can do the well.
That's pretty good.
It is pretty good. George, you got a oh, what a rush for me?
Oh, I'm gonna try. You ready?
All right, go for it.
Oh, what a rush!
That's not bad.
That's not bad at all.
That's not bad at all. I would try it, but I'm. Now, see, you can't do that because now that you got the genuine article and nobody else is going to try it.
No, you can. You got to see how close you can get.
Not as close as the OG. I can guarantee you that.
So this War Games, is this your favorite match of theirs?
Of the Road Warriors?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. I got to think on that one for a second. That is a tough one.
Nothing but the best for you, my friend.
Well, let's be clear. The original War Games match, and most of the early War Games matches, I'm a purist when it comes to War Games matches. I don't believe any War Games match after 1992 is worth going out of your way to see. There were some okay ones.
Yeah, but Biff, to be fair, you don't believe any match after 1992 is worth going out of your way to see.
That's not true. My favorite match of all time happened in '94.
What match? I'm curious.
Wild Pegasus versus the Great Sasuke from the '94 Super J Cup.
From Super Jake, I have that entire tournament on a DVD in my coffee table. My entertainment center. Yep.
Yeah, it's the greatest wrestling show of all time. Just for
the '94 Super J Cup is as good as it gets, man. That is it
really is.
That is a great. That's a good shout for favorite. That's a good one.
Yeah.
My respect for you, which was already quite high, is now even higher.
Well, it's easier to say Wild Pegasus and not his name he was more commonly known as. It's a little bit easier to get away with that. So
yeah.
But in terms of I do joke that I'm a purist when it comes to music and wrestling, but in terms of War Games matches themselves, the original 5, which would be 87's 2, they had 2 of them. 89, 91, and 92. Those are definitely the best. And of the 2 War Games matches that I would consider to be the best of the genre, 92 and 87 are fighting neck and neck for number 1. If you've never seen the 92 War Games match, that one is definitely worth a watch. 89 is good. They proved that you could do a good War Games match without blood. But 87 was just so much anarchy, especially in that time period. It's a mixture of wrestlers that the fans absolutely loved versus wrestlers the fans loathed like no other. A super hot crowd, because there's no crowd like a Crockett crowd. You fight me if you want. That's my hill to die on. You have the hottest crowd, the hottest angle, in one of the hottest promotions of the country. And then, there's just something about, Road Warrior Hawk coming in there and shoulder tackling people across the ring and sticking Art Anderson's head between the rings upside down.
Yep.
Just the freaking chaos all over the place. Tully Blanchard getting slingshotted into the cage back and forth like a rag doll. I remember these. Oh, and of course the obligatory press slam up into the roof of the cage. There's just so many spots that I remember. I'm going to have to say yes. That probably would be my favorite Road Warriors match. It's definitely my favorite of the Crockett era. And that's no disrespect whatsoever to any match they had with the Midnights, with Anderson and Blanchard. That's no disrespect to the Steiners or Doom or the Skyscrapers.
I mean, anytime the Road Warriors or Legion of Doom was in a match in any promotion was a must-see match because you just didn't. You knew asses were going to be kicked.
Yep.
Plain and simple.
You talk about charisma. And you talk about the inability to take your eyes off a wrestler. And I talked about that. You couldn't take your eyes off him.
No, you couldn't. And real quick, guys, we have a very, very highfalutin guest in the chat tonight. But he's currently has us on in the background. That's your partner from the Two Guys One Sport, 9/8 Central. Chris Colgan has joined us. Crazy Chris is
there. Christopher!
Your buddy and your cohort.
My guy,
I had to announce that.
Tomohiro Ishii to my Kazuchika Okada.
Wow. It could have been worse. You could have been like the Toru Yano of your partnership.
I will not sit here and let you slander Toru Yano, my friend.
Oh my God.
I will not.
The blue meanie. He's the blue meanie of the end of New Japan. So.
You want to talk about a wrestling genius? That guy getting over without taking a bump is a wrestling genius.
Who's that? The blue meanie?
No, Toru Yano. He's a comedy wrestler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Imagine the most. Imagine Bastion Booger, just not quite as fat. That's Toru Yano.
Okay.
You're not very nice.
I'm declaring war on Two Guys One Sport as we speak.
You're not very nice. Nobody likes you when you have no friends.
Wow. Okay. Poor Mike Shaw deserved better than to be
And
compared
to
to
think, and to think, Biff, you were worried about us not having fun tonight. Go figure.
Hey, the respect is nice, but the cheap shots are flowing now.
Yeah, the cheap heat is out there, right? Yeah, we got to get it.
George, we're going to have a talk after the show about your fandom. We need to repair some of those poor life choices you're making. So.
Yeah, I've made a myriad of poor life choices, but being a fan of Toriano is not one of them, my friend.
Oh, you poor little soul. You obviously didn't go through the DARE program in school, so.
Anyway, Anyway, we need to get back on topic here, guys.
Just say no, huh?
Well, it should figure that the Road Warriors episode turns into Mad Max with everybody going after each other. So
that's a great segue.
Yeah, it is. The thing about it is that if you look at their look, the look of the Road Warriors, and you go back and look at the movie, both Mad Max and the Road Warrior, especially the Road Warrior, the face paint was pretty much spot on. Because most of the evil characters of the movie, The Road Warrior, wore some kind of face paint or some kind of mask.
Yeah. So, it was a great look for them, and it was cartoonish, but in the best way. Mm-hmm. Because even though they had this face paint and the mohawk and the reverse mohawk and the shoulder pads, when push came to shove, they'd still beat the crap out of you.
Yep. They could back up all the shit they talked.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah. That was,
and they didn't tolerate, skinny necked midgets.
No. As a matter of fact, poor Hawk, he actually disturbed me highly with some of the promos he used to cut, particularly about Ric Flair. Like, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on whatever he was trying to say because, I'm sure the drugs were hella cool. At the time, but Ric Flair used to get the worst verbal abuse from Hawk that I could remember.
Oh God, he called them everything but a man.
Yeah, and at one point he cut a promo so jacked up it was like I thought I was watching an episode of Oz or something. It was like Hawk was about to make Ric Flair his prison bitch or something, and it's like. I know that Crockett's promotion was a bit more edgy than the WWF in the 1980s, but you go back and you're actually quite taken aback at how risque some of the talk was. Like Ric Flair laying prostrate on the ground because he's going to run a train on somebody all night. It's just that's the kind of talk you don't really expect to hear in your 80s wrestling.
No, that would be a good way of putting it.
So, I mean, it's just weird how the times change and what we think of in our nostalgia tinge glasses can be a little different from what actually was. But we talk about the cartoonish aspect of the Road Warriors. This is probably a good time to segue into talking about the dichotomy between the Road Warriors pre-WWF and the Road Warriors post-WWF because they are two very different tag teams once the Road Warriors arrive in New York. And that's not to say they didn't have success. They were a very popular tag team when they arrived. As a matter of fact, they all but destroyed Demolition. They just completely wiped out the Demolition tag team, depriving us of the feud we should have got between the two. But, they were decidedly different. The edge that came off. We're talking about a tag team that indirectly got Dusty Rhodes fired for a bloody angle. Yeah, with a spike, which we could talk about if y'all want to. One of the
Sure. Tell the story.
Well, it was one of the bloodiest angles on TBS, and it was definitely a graphic one. Dusty Rhodes decided the Road Warriors needed to turn heel, I guess, because he got tired of making money.
Yeah.
It was not the most advantageous of decisions he would make. They were basically turned themselves babyface within 3 months because it just didn't work. But Dusty Rhodes' idea to get the Road Warriors over his heels were to, first of all, beat the crap out of the Midnight Express, which helped a little because the Midnights had built up so much sympathy from the fans over the summer of '88 that it kind of helped Midnight's complete their face turn while the Road Warriors were trying to go the other way. Then they turned on Sting and beat the crap out of him. And then they confronted Dusty Rhodes.
Continuing a long and proud tradition of wrestlers turning on Sting.
Oh, Sting, you poor bastard.
Sting.
And then they had the
dumbest baby face of all time.
I swear, yeah, Sting dumb. But we've talked about that in the past.
Poor Sting.
Bailey is, if we want to talk, let's talk current wrestlers. Yeah, Bailey is the equivalent of Sting right now.
Yeah.
Sting dumb is over.
Yeah, except Sting has charisma. Oh, snap!
Oh, damn it! No, but then, like I said, you mentioned Biff. You mentioned the Dusty Rhodes thing, isn't it? That's one of the ones where the whole they unscrewed one of the spikes off the shoulder pads and basically, supposedly, quote unquote, took his eyeball out.
Yeah, they stuck it in his eye, and he bladed his eye, which it sounds about as icky as it actually came across on TV.
That sounds vile.
Yeah, it was one of those angles. The NWA was notorious for running stuff like that.
Well, that was the thing, though. The thing about it was that when Dusty got his arm broke by the Four Horsemen with the baseball bat.
Yeah,
he told them straight out, make it good, and they literally broke his arm.
Well, it's the grittiness of Crockett era promotions. A lot of those Southern territories were a fine mix of high-class wrestling and gritty wrestling. I mean, you look at Starrcade 83 and, like, of the 10 matches on the card, 8 of them feature blood. It's like you got your wrestling trunks, your payoff, and then a sheet of razor blades to blade yourself with. That was your payoff in Crockett for a time. But that was just part of what was in the water. They had those gritty, vicious angles. The Road Warriors tried to turn heel, and they put a spike in Dusty Rhodes' eye to accomplish that. Didn't work because the Road Warriors were just too popular, but they tried. I would say
very rarely does it work when you go against what the crowd wants in wrestling.
Yeah.
Prime example currently, Becky Lynch.
Yeah, among many others.
Yeah, and to be fair, Crockett had better eye-stabbing angles that they had done in the past. Tully Blanchard, Looking at You, Starrcade 85, still the most violent wrestling match in the history of the business.
What match is this?
Okay, so you've not seen the War Games match.
I've not seen the War Games.
And you've not seen Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard.
I have not seen Magnum. I've not seen Magnum versus Tully Blanchard.
All right, I want everybody pause. Hold on to your Road Warriors talk because we're not done yet. But I need to. We got to rectify this right now.
Send me a link, my friend.
Forget you got the network.
Of course.
All right. Forget War Games.
I'm pulling it up right now.
You can watch that later.
WWE Network.
Go to the pay-per-view vault and go to the WCW section.
All right. Log in. We're doing this right now. You said Starrcade 85?
Starrcade 85.
Shows. Oh, shit. It's October. It's time for those infernal pink ribbons everywhere.
They didn't have them back then.
No, they didn't have them back then.
They didn't have them back then, no. Unless they were used to blot the blood. Starrcade.
Should be Starrcade 85, the Galley.
I see it. Starrcade 85. Main event. Huge event featuring Ric Flair facing Dusty Rhodes for the world title. A steel cage I Quit match between Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard. This sounds like it's going to be awesome.
Let me lay out the groundwork for you.
Okay. Can we have a Magnum TA show?
Yes.
We need to have a Magnum TA show.
I almost got Magnum TA on the show. I almost got Magnum TA to come on the show. Just letting you know.
I like Magnum TA.
So.
All right, let's see.
That would be great if we could pull it off there.
Which one of these tabs?
Yeah.
Wow, there's some great matches on this show. I'm looking at it. I'm just scrolling. Raging Bull versus Abby the Butcher. Crusher Khrushchev versus Sam Houston.
Not as good as you think.
Ron Bass versus Black Bart. That doesn't sound good. In a Texas Bull Rope match. Yeah, hard pass. How good is Superstar Billy Graham versus the Barbarian? Probably not that great because it was Billy Graham in 1985.
It was an arm wrestling contest, if memory serves.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Buddy Landell versus Terry Taylor.
That's a decent match.
Mhm.
Then we have McDaniel and Haynes versus Ole and Arn Anderson.
That's a hard-hitting match.
I'm sure it is. It's got Ole.
It's got
It's got Ole and Wahoo in it, so figure.
There we go. Tully Blanchard versus Magnum TA in a steel cage.
Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this match. It only runs about 10 to 12 minutes. It's not a long match. This was kind of what everyone pointed to as the most violent match in wrestling history, mainstream wrestling history, before Hell in a Cell 98. And I would argue that it's still more violent than Hell in a Cell 98 because it's more visceral. Hell in a Cell 98 is more about the big spots and the car crash appeal. This is more where you look at two men and you question, how is this fake? That can't be fake.
Kind of like the Soldier Field cage match.
Yeah, there are certain matches you watch where you just look at it and you go, they really hate each other. They're really beating the piss out of one another. And this is one of those matches. So what I want you to do, George, I want you to put your microphone on mute. And I want you to watch this match. It only takes about 10 minutes. Because it's a sin against nature. It's a sin against the Lord that you have never seen this match. And so I'm stopping the show for you. Watch this match on mute. With us on mute. You hear the commentary. The commentary is the best freaking part of it. Bob Caudle has an orgasm on air at the end of the match for a spot, and you'll know why when it happens. Watch that match, and you come back and talk to me, and I'll accept your personal thanks.
Should I leave the Hangouts or
no? You can stay in the Hangouts.
Stay in the Hangouts. Just mute.
How do I mute? How do I mute you guys?
You don't.
I got you. I figured it out. Okay. I'll do it. Should I leave my microphone on and just give running commentary?
You know what? That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
I'm gonna mute you three, and I'm just gonna say shit as I watch this match.
Okay, we'll continue our Road Warriors talk while you
jump in every now and again.
While you mark out at the violence you're about to enjoy.
This is Red Hot Radio. All right, I'm gonna mute you all right now.
Okay. So while George pops his Magnum TA Tully Blanchard cherry, let's get back to the Road Warriors talk because.
What the hell? George? Or guys, you're all muted. You need to... George, just turn your volume. Well, that's not going to work either. You're going to hear us in the background, unfortunately. We're not going to have 12 minutes of dead air.
That's fine.
Biff is muted.
Biff, unmute your mic.
What I would like to know is how George got controls to mute everybody else.
He got
I clicked on a little thing that said mute in the corner.
You've apparently been granted the controls of the entire show.
Well, I'm just that damn good. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to listen to the commentary. I'm going to mark out.
Okay. you do that. You do that, and we'll continue our Road Warriors discussion. Because I want to get Taker and LL to weigh in on the difference between the Road Warriors of the NWA/AWA era and the Legion of Doom that we would see in the WWF, because they really were two distinct tag teams. Same guys, Hawk and Animal, are appearing in both of them, but it was a different aesthetic. It was. I
love this match already, by the way. They're coming out in robes and heavy metal. Tully Blanchard and his awesome robe. All right, go on.
Okay. Take off with it, man. I'm going to laugh a little bit here for a second.
Oh, Magnum's already in the ring.
That's why I put in the chat room there. It was Chris is there. So things are about to get interesting here. Yeah, they are. George is going to be
Holy shit, Magnum is jacked.
Honest to God, I've got half a mind just to listen to him listening to this match. It's almost as entertaining as anything I can say.
Who's this guy in the red suit doing PA?
Tom Miller. That's Tom Miller. It's the best ring announcer in Rocket history.
That may be the worst fitting suit I've ever seen.
Yeah, it kind of looks like shit.
Holy shit, Tully's over. Or Magnum's over.
See, he's just excited now. Wait until they actually start beating each other with the microphone. That's
wow,
what I'm looking for.
Don't give that away.
He can't hear me. He's too busy listening to the
I can hear you.
Oops. Okay, well, spoiler.
You were saying something about the Road Warriors, Biff?
Yeah, the Road Warriors, like, compare the teams from their WWF and their NWA run, because they were really two different teams. Even though we got the same guys involved with the actual tag team itself. Talk a little bit about the differences between the two styles that they employed.
I can say this much. The WWF/WWE version of the Road Warriors was a little bit more, was more toned down. They weren't near as violent as they could have been. You know, I mean, in the WCW days, or in those Georgia Championship Wrestling days, they were a violent team, very violent. You know, they were billed as coming from the mean streets of Chicago. So that, living in an alley, fighting rats and all this other shit. So they had a complete different aura about them in the days of WCW or NWA than they had when they came to WWF. Like I said, they almost toned it down by a third.
Who are the announcers here? Bob Geiger? No.
Bob Caudle and who else?
Johnny Weaver, probably.
Yeah. It sounds like Tony Schiavone, but it ain't Tony Schiavone.
It could be Tony Schiavone, depending on who's got the dub.
It may actually be Tony Schiavone.
It's either Tony Schiavone and Bob. It might be Tony Schiavone and Bob Caudle. So
it is Bob Crawley for sure.
Yeah, Bob Crawley. Yeah.
Oh, they're going at it. They're going at it. Some good old-fashioned wrestling. That ain't gonna last, is it? They're like doing moves and shit.
Just watch it. You'll see.
I'll just watch.
It's going to descend into hell for them very quickly. So,
because that was a blood feud, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, Tully Blanchard had his leg broken at one point by Dusty and Magnum. That was part of like the overarching feud that Dusty had with the Horsemen. It just kind of transitioned on the Magnum before they were the Horsemen, I guess would be more appropriate. But
yeah,
it's kind of funny. We're talking about the Horsemen and how the Road Warriors just kind of slotted into all of those top feuds. If there was a top heel in the NWA, they worked with them.
Even though the Road Warriors themselves,
holy shit, Tully Blanchard's a great seller. I mean, I already knew that, but it's always nice to see that again.
If you think he's a great seller now, wait until the end of the match.
Yeah, but he's awesome at it though.
Just wait until the end.
Making him look incredible.
Wait until the end of the match. You're gonna mark out. You're gonna scream on there.
Magnum's perm. We need to have a nice long discussion about Magnum's hair. But go on.
Well, that's a future show. Magnum TA is a future show.
I am so excited for him to experience the end of this match.
I know. If it ends the way I think it do, both of them are bloody messes. I think.
Yeah, it's the most famous ending to a Crockett match ever, and he's going to. It's just so tremendous. I'm so eagerly waiting for these next 10 minutes to roll by. But the Road Warriors, they always worked against the top guys. And the only promotion that I would say they didn't work in the very top of the card is the WWF. They were kind of restricted to the tag team ranks. Now, they still wrestled the big tag teams. Of course, one of the Road Warriors' most famous matches, perhaps, is from Madison Square Garden in 1991 at SummerSlam when they captured their first WWF Tag Team Championship from the Nasty Boys. But they were mostly just wrestling with the tag team acts. They would occasionally have some tag team matches where they came in with some of the big stars. Like at Survivor Series 90, they worked with the Ultimate Warrior on his Survivor Series team. But they weren't at the same level that they were in the NWA. In the NWA, they were best friends with Dusty Rhodes. They were fighting the Horsemen. Hulk was always challenging Ric Flair for the world title during a Bash tour. It seemed like he wrestled Flair at least once every tour. between 86 and 88.
Yeah.
In the AWA, they wrestled against some of the top guys. You talked a little bit ago about them wrestling Dick the Bruiser and Baron von Raschke.
Yeah.
In Georgia, of course, they were working with...
They worked, like you said, they worked against the Horsemen. They worked against Doom. They worked against the Skyscrapers. All the top tag teams, and they were main eventing.
Yes, they were main event talents everywhere except the WWF. And it's just kind of weird that despite coveting them for so long, really and truly, of all the runs the Legion of Doom had, I would say the WWF tenure was probably the weakest of the bunch. I
would agree.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the way their talent is. Vince kept it down.
And I never understood why, though, because it was so apparent that he wanted the Road Warriors for so long.
But then you got to remember, there's a lot of other wrestlers that he wanted for a long time. And as soon as he got him, what happened to him?
Well, prime example, Sting. He wanted Sting for the longest time. When Sting finally came over, a couple of years, 4 years ago now, he basically buried him.
That's a very good point.
With the match against Triple H.
Yep.
It's a salient point. Vince has covered a lot of people over the years, and he's not really used them very well.
No, he buries them.
So... what about
Sting was Sting was the last WCW holdout,
and Vince wanted to get him over to prove that he could do it. Once he got him, that was it.
Yep.
Yeah.
He got his run. He had had a string of matches. He had to retire because of the buckle bomb from Seth, which was accidental, and he's now in the Hall of Fame and retired. He wanted. I think it all had to do with he wanted Sting, and the dream match that everybody wanted was Sting Undertaker. They should have gave us that one right away. That would have been a great match to watch, and have both of them disappear out of the ring together. Just poof.
Well,
gone.
He wanted Goldberg too. He got Goldberg. Goldberg didn't do very much in the WWE, and he was gone.
And then
yeah. Well, at least Goldberg had a couple of world title runs.
Yeah.
So
he did. He had a couple, and then he was gone. Yeah. But that's it. He basically he wanted to make sure he got all the top talent from WCW. Doesn't matter when. But then he buried them.
Yeah.
Jesus, Tully. Jesus, Magnum. These guys, does Magnum not know how to gig? And what is going on with Tully's arm? I want to know.
I'm waiting for the holy shit to come. Because it's coming.
It's coming. These guys have... all right, keep going. Sorry.
Oh,
the Road Warriors, they tried. They were still fan favorites in WWE.
Hell no! And then he hits him with the microphone. God, I love wrestling. I love wrestling. You're damn right he's hitting him with the microphone, Bob. Holy, you son of a bitch.
Go ahead.
They were still draws. They were still fan favorites. But the way they were booked like shit. They were booked as mid-card level.
Yep. And Chris has got it perfectly right. He said Vince's ego won't anyone be more significant than things from his company. And I agree. I agree 100%. It's petty, but it's the truth when it comes to Vince. He has any chance to bury somebody, he'll do it. Who else do here?
I'm here.
Yeah, I saw you left.
We had a little bit of a technical issue on my end there for a second, but I'm assuming we're still talking about Vince and his propensity for burying.
Well, like, I don't know if you heard what I said about what Chris said. His ego won't let anyone be more significant than the things things from his company. That's basically things he's created.
Ding, ding, ding.
I agree 100%. That's the truth.
Yep, that is the truth.
If he's got a chance to get top talent from somebody else like ROH or Impact or NJPW or All Japan or wherever, as soon as he gets them here, he buries them.
Yeah, I would agree.
You look at the team. You look at the tag team right now that does some of the moves that the Road Warriors and Legion of Doom did. That's the Revival. They do the device. They use the Doomsday device as one of their finishers. Mm-hmm. I've seen them do it.
Yeah.
And where are they? Buried right now. They held the tag team championship for exactly 1 week.
This match is really great. That's my commentary.
But then you look at it too. What's he doing with the top talent? A lot of the top talent, fan choices that came up from NXT, they're getting buried.
Yep.
Well, I don't want to confuse people that weren't around to actually see their runs. The Legion of Doom essentially had 2 major runs in the WWF. And I say major, they had some appearances sporadically over the years. But for all intents and purposes, the 2 big runs they had from 1990 to 1992, and then again from about 1997 to 1998, 1999-ish, that would kind of be the big runs they had. They did have success during those periods. They won a couple of tag team championships. They were in some high-profile feuds. They're probably more responsible than any other team of getting the New Age Outlaws over as a top-level tag team. And, of course, New Age Outlaws would go on to have some incredible success of their own. But, again, it's just like WWF never quite figured out the proper way to use them. Whereas in the NWA and in WCW, they were the ass kickers they were meant to be. They were put on this earth to put on shoulder pads with spikes and beat the snot out of people.
Yep.
And business was good for a long, long time with them.
To use Roddy Piper's saying, they were put on this earth to chew bubblegum and kick some ass.
Oh, I think in their case it was drink beer and kick some ass, and they're all out of food. I don't imagine Road Warrior Hawk talking about chewing bubblegum.
No, yeah, but you know what? It's the same mentality. Wasn't it the second run that Paul Ellering came back with them?
Yeah, Paul Ellering came back with the dummy called Rocco, which was another joke that they didn't like. But we have failed so far to address one big 800-pound gorilla that's in the room. In Hawk. And it had to do with the actually it was a controversy that was started during the Attitude Era, where WWE was going to the more adult product, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they brought in Michael Hagstrand, which is Hawk.
Hawk's real name, yeah.
Hawk's real name. His drug addiction. And got it involved with the storyline. And that's where Puke came to existence. And it was Hawk had suicidal tendencies and all this stuff.
And that's what kind of was the downfall of the Road Warriors there.
Yeah.
That was kind of the end of the tag team, which, in complete fairness, at that point, the Road Warriors had run their course, but it was a very, trying to think of the proper word, a very unsuitable end for one of the great tag teams.
Yes.
To go out like that. To the credit of the WWF, they did bring Hawk and Animal back a couple of years later for a guest shot in Chicago against Rob Van Dam.
Totally just went after the ref.
Oh, he's at the spot, y'all.
Why is the ref in this match? Ref don't do shit. Oh, someone threw a chair.
Okay.
Oh, snap. A wooden chair.
I'm going to let George take it from here because
all right. So, shit. He's got a chair, and he just took a rail from the chair, and he just kicked the ref, and Tully's going to impale this bastard. Oh, but Magnum blocked. He's blocked the spike. He's got a wooden spike, and he's going to drive it into his eye. Oh, but Magnum's fighting back, and holy shit, this crowd. Can Tully impale him with the spike? No. Wait, maybe? Magnum's fighting back from underneath. He's fighting back. Oh, he's powering up. Magnum's powering up. And we're still going. I'm running out of adjectives. Oh shit, Magnum's powering up. Oh, with the knee.
Yeah, here it comes.
The wrists are still locked.
Now Magnum's got it. He's got a piece of that chair.
He's got a piece of that chair. Magnum's up. Oh shit, he's got the piece of that chair. Oh, and he jabs it in his head. Oh shit. Oh god. Tully, say it. He's impaling Tully in the forehead with the piece of this chair. And Tully's down. Oh, Tully's bleeding like a stuck pig. He said it. He quit. He quit. He quit, damn it. Magnum's the champion. Magnum's the champion.
George with his best Joey Styles impersonation there.
Oh, shit. Magnum TA with the spike, but he's not done yet, folks. He's got another piece of that chair.
And he drops think of it today.
You know what? He drops it and he takes the belt because he's a babyface. And babyfaces don't stick heels with the spike when the match is over. And he walks out of the ring to the ovation of his fans with the belt on one hand.
Bleeding like a stuck pig.
Bleeding like two stuck pigs. You know what, Magnum TA? You're a man's man. Tully Blanchard, you're a man's man.
And you think
I don't blame you for quitting. My God. And the referee who looks like Frazier's brother
Earl Hebner
calls it like it is. You know, David Hyde Pierce Jr.
Yeah, it's Earl Hebner.
Yep, young Earl Hebner. Young, much less fat Earl Hebner. Look, that was awesome. That was a great match. I love that match. It was awesome. I would recommend it.
Do you need a moment to recover, George?
I need a tissue. That's all I'm gonna say.
He's verklempt. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I need yeah. That match was you know, these days there's not a lot in wrestling that makes me happy. You know, not I understand it's not the WWE's job to make wrestling for me. I'm just some dweeb with a podcast. And they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. But I wish wrestling could be more like that. Just two guys beating the crap out of each other. No lockups, no lockups, no bullshit, no nothing.
You're gonna love the first War Games match. It's no bullshit. It's
wrestling was wrestling.
When wrestling was wrestling, exactly.
Not everything from the past needs to be in the past. I'm glad that the guys aren't dying at anywhere near the rate that they were back then. You know, but there's a lot of stuff from the past that still can teach us so much in the present.
And then if you think of it now, Tully and TA, they're friends.
They should be.
They talk to each other and everything. They're very good friends.
Well, when TA had the accident, I mean, that changed a lot of, all of
God, what could have been, man.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you're stopping Hulk Hogan, but you're definitely not stopping him without a healthy Magnum TA.
When Magnum TA had his accident, the first two at the hospital was Tully Blanchard and JJ Dillon.
That's right.
They were first two at the hospital at Magnum's side.
And by the way, George, you're reminded by your co-host from Thursday, you got 2 podcasts, not 1.
2 podcasts. You're right.
Yes.
Chris is right.
Well, I mean, if you made the amount of money that Tully Blanchard made for getting that piece of wood jabbed into his eye, you'd be friends with Magnum TA too.
Yeah. You know,
they both made money that night.
You mentioned this earlier during your talk about the Road Warriors and how the Road Warriors were at home. You called it what? Safe heat, right?
Yeah.
You know, Connor, another reason why people like working with the Road Warriors is because they made that money at the pay window.
They absolutely did.
You know, Conor McGregor calls it red panty night when people fight him, because if you fight Conor McGregor, you make so much money, your girlfriend breaks out the red panties, the special ones, because she's happy for you, you know? It was always red panty night for the Road Warriors opponents because they were making money hand over fist.
Just to give you an idea of how much money they were making, for Starrcade '86, the Night of the Skywalkers match, both Jim Cornette, Bobby Eaton, Dennis Condrey, Hulk, and Animal, they all made $10,000 apiece for their participation at Starrcade '86. In 2018 amounts, that would be tantamount to being paid $23,000 per person
for one match.
For one match.
And they could pay them that because they knew they were drawing that much money.
Yeah, they were making money hand over fist. This was the first $1 million gate in the history of the NWA, Starrcade '86.
So Dusty turned him heel because why the hell not? Oh, wait.
Well, if you want to know why Jim Cornette is so bitter and pissed off these days, you were making that kind of jack and then you watch people destroy it in the span of 2 years, I'd be sad too.
Jim Cornette's bitter and pissed off because he's Jim Cornette. but I understand your sentiment, Biff. You're not.
We love you, Jim.
You're not wrong.
Corny.
We love you, Jim.
The Road Warriors started out as heels. Their face turn was organic.
Yeah.
Do y'all know the story behind their face turn and why they actually turned face?
No, but I think we're about to find the F out.
Well, what's the one thing that you hate more than roided up Superman in the 1980s?
The fucking Russians.
Yes! The commies.
Goddamn Russians.
The commies.
The dirty commie bastards.
Yep.
Those commie pinkos, yeah. They got caught in a feud with the Russians, and if there was anyone that could turn the Road Warriors babyface, it was those damn Russians.
Yeah, it was Ivan and Nikita.
I like how Nikita turned face after Magnum's accident.
Yeah, I mean, you would talk about someone that would have made an excellent third Road Warrior. Nikita Koloff was jacked to the gills, just like they were.
Yep.
They just didn't have the face paint, but the Russian accent, the fake Russian accent, by the way, that he employed could have went along nicely with Hulk and Animal, especially Animal. Like Hulk had a distinctive voice, but at least you could understand Hulk. Animal felt like he was just screaming at the top of his lungs.
Because he was just screaming at the top of his lungs.
Well, yeah.
Let's talk promos for a second. It would always start out, Hawk would speak first, then Animal would speak, and bless his heart, Paul Ellering would tie both of what they said together so it all makes sense.
Tell him, Hawk.
Yeah. Well, and he would say whatever. Tell him, Hawk.
And when they say, tell him, Hawk, Animal punches Hawk in the chest.
Yep.
They always punched each other when they're talking.
Yep. Reminds you of a certain tag team in WWF this year, Bludgeon Brothers, smacking each other around.
Yeah,
they're
on the shelf right now.
And you know what? What's old is new again, right, guys?
But then you go back to AWA time. Crusher and that used to do that all the time. They'd sit there and punch each other.
Yep. Crusher and Bruiser would sit there and start beating the shit out of each other for no apparent reason.
And
because they could, because they were scary dudes.
And they're laughing about it.
I think the funniest promo I ever saw was in the build-up to Starrcade '86, and this is a weird kind of I guess this is kind of a nostalgic thing for me, because Jim Crockett's offices were in Charlotte up until like 1988. Whenever they would film vignettes around town, they're filming places in Charlotte, and so I see all these places. I'm like, holy shit, I know that place. That's South Boulevard. That's Briarbend. That's Randolph Road. You know, it's weird how it's kind of like a time capsule for my hometown here. But my favorite promo, they went over to Presbyterian Hospital in Charlotte, and they got up on a scaffold, and they basically wanted the Midnight Express to have a simulation of what was going to happen to them when they got to Starrcade in the scaffold match. They basically took a couple of pumpkins and they dressed it up in paint or whatever to make it look like Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey, and they just kept throwing pumpkins on the ground, smashing them.
Yes.
And they're just laughing their ass off like, that's what's going to happen to you. It's just so funny. It's just so over the top. But it's that dynamism, that dynamic, larger than life, outsized comic book character come to life persona where you feel like these guys, it's just they're from another universe. They can't be real. It's too impossible to be real.
Mm-hmm.
And yet here they were in the flesh.
Yep.
Beating the crap out of people.
Well, like you said, Biff, while George was watching that match, they were rejects from the reject extras of the movie The Road Warrior.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, you know, all of the characters in that movie wore face paint of some kind. All the evil characters.
Yeah.
You know, George, I don't know if you heard us talking about it, the difference between the Road Warriors and the NWA and Georgia Championship Wrestling and World Championship Wrestling versus the WWE, WWF/E Legion of Doom.
And they were neutered.
There you go.
I said that they were forced to tone it down. They weren't as violent.
Yeah, they weren't as authentic. They felt fake. They never felt fake in the NWA, even though they were dressed in paint and mohawks and what have you. They never felt fake until they went to New York.
Well, I mean, if you're driving,
is that a fair assessment?
No, I completely agree with you.
I agree with you too.
You're driving a Harley down to the ring. You've got face paint and Warhawk. You've got giant spiked pads. You're coming down to Iron Man from Black Sabbath. I mean, fuck yeah. You're going to look like a badass in there.
Exactly.
So, no, I completely buy into it. And, you know, it's not to disrespect what they did in the WWF. I mean, I'm as big a fan of their WWF team as anyone. I mean, it gets a pop for me every time. LL started off the show tonight with it. So it's recognizable. It's just, you know, it's just one of those things where you just wonder what would have happened had the Road Warriors come along 10 years after they actually came into the business. Like, what if they were coming of age in the Attitude Era? Or if they had come up, instead of through Georgia Championship Wrestling, maybe they came up through ECW. You know, what would the landscape look like if the Road Warriors had come along 10 years later?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, either Hawk or Animal, I can't remember which, one of them wrestled in an Eastern Championship at one point.
I think there was a briefly time where there was some Road Warriors in ECW.
Yeah, but it was Eastern Championship Wrestling. It wasn't considered extreme yet.
No, nothing like it would be. So
no. Let's see. I'm trying to find it. Return to WCW in 2001. No. I'm trying to find it now. It's going to drive me crazy.
Because there's a couple of things Hawk couldn't do because of the drugs.
I think it was Hawk with Solo and did that for a bit. I'm not sure.
Because remember, he lost his job because of the drugs.
I can't find it, but I saw it tonight when I was reading it, but I can't remember who it was that went there.
It seems like everybody went there at some point. If they had worked in the WCW or the WWF in the late 80s, early 90s, they had at least one or two guest shots from Eastern Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, well, like I said, it was Eastern Championship Wrestling. It wasn't extreme yet.
Well, before we wrap up this episode, let's talk about one of the, I guess you would say, kind of one of the hallmark legacies of the Road Warriors. One of the things that made the tag team so unique compared to some of the other great teams of the decade, because we were talking at the outset of the show about how potent tag team wrestling was in the 1980s.
Okay.
It was everything in the 1980s.
Yeah,
that's because of his drugs.
Yeah, it was absolutely the pinnacle of the art form, if you consider it an art form, which I do. But, you know, tag team wrestling kind of reached the zenith in the 80s. What made the Road Warriors stand out more than their aesthetic, more than their size, more than their promos? The Road Warriors had an uncanny ability to no-sell the shit out of opponents without doing it in a way that made their opponents look bad.
No, you're right.
It's a great way of putting it.
It's such a weird phenomenon because you look at the history of wrestling. There have been instances where wrestlers have gone into business for themselves, they've no-sold offense, and it's actively hurt the people they work with. a great example. Paul Roma destroying Alex Wright, and I believe it was Super Brawl 95. Completely no-sold him, made him look like trash, and it killed his character.
Well, it's straight out of the Triple H school of like 2003. If you run down your opponent and you make him look like shit, and then you beat him in 8 minutes, congratulations, you beat someone who you spent 6 weeks telling us looks like shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I found it. It was Hawk. He was in Japan and Indian independence from 92 to 95. Okay. And, funny I should say that is that, he joined New Japan at one point and was paired with Kensuke Sasaki, my guy from the draft last week.
Your guy.
Was known then as a good mid-cutter. They were called the Hellraisers, with Sasaki adopting face paint and the gimmick as a Power Warrior.
Yep.
They won the IWGP Tag Team Championship twice, but no one thought to bring them over to the United States due to Sasaki's affiliation with NJPW.
Eventually, the doors did open between a lot of Japanese talent coming over in 95 and 96, especially once the Nitro era started.
Right, but then Hawk also was a CWA World Heavyweight Champion over in Europe, and then he competed in the Eastern Championship Wrestling in 93.
Yeah, he turned his life around. This is what I'm very thankful about. He turned his life around towards the end of his life.
Yes.
He did have problems.
Jesus.
Yeah, in 2003, both him and Animal both became born again Christians, and they attended Christian wrestling events run by Ted DiBiase and Nikita Koloff.
Yeah, Nikita Koloff is actually a preacher down in the area. It's the weirdest thing. It's you expect him to have the old Russian accent, but he has finally shed it. So Nikita,
better late than never, huh?
Better late than never. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's he got help for his addictions. He had turned his life around. He was in a better place. It is painful and unfortunate that he's no longer with us.
Yes, it is. I mean, it would have been so cool to have him at the 2011 induction live instead of the little figure they had, and it would have even been it would have been cool as hell to have them at Raw 1000.
Well, like they said, when he died, he was sober, he was clean.
Yep, he died of a heart attack. He didn't die of anything regarding. Granted, the damage to his heart was from
the drugs,
the drug use.
Yeah,
but the day he died, he was clean. Oh, he said he didn't feel good. He had talked to Joe. He had talked to Animal because it's on the video. He talked to Animal the day he died. They had some boxes to move, and he had just gotten done. He said he wasn't feeling good. He wanted to lay down and take a nap, and he had a heart attack while he slept.
So it's unfortunate that he's no longer here to kind of share in the success that he had with Animal over the years. Animal, to his credit, and I raise a glass to him for this, he's really kind of carried on the legacy of that team in Hawk's honor since he passed.
Yes.
But even if I'm not mistaken, he got another tag title run out of it in 2005 with Heidenreich.
Yes,
sounds
he did.
about right.
Yeah,
he did. He did. But there was nothing better than in the weeks leading up to Raw 1000, the Legends Challenge of Heath Slater.
That was great.
When I challenge any of those, warriors from the legendary warriors and blah 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 in the back, and all of a sudden you hear, what a run! The crowd lost its shit.
Here come Animal.
Here come Animal, and Heath Slater's like, "Oh no, not again!" He knew he was going to get killed.
My stepfather used to call it the old dookie face.
No, I'm sorry. Out of all the matches Heath Slater had, the best one was Lita in the APA.
Yes. No disqualification, no count out match, and Lita walks out. She goes, oh, but I've got help.
I hired protection.
I hired protection, and out comes Farouk and Bradshaw. It's done.
But the thing is Lita put the finishing touch on him.
Yep. The
Or,
moonsault off the top rope.
or the look on his face when Sid Vicious came out.
Yep. There's just so many people, and you mentioned the APA, you mentioned Sid Vicious, two guys who, or three guys, I guess, who all owe part of their careers to the Road Warriors.
Yep.
Farouk got his big start in Doom, and one of their big feuds was with the Road Warriors.
And you look at this. All 5 of the guys you just mentioned are on my board.
Yep.
Yeah. And on that note, well, I've had my fill of fun tonight, so we're gonna close up shop here. It is getting close to the closing time anyway.
Yeah, and we actually got to hear George mark out like a little girl.
That was awesome. That match ruled.
We'll have to do like an
Tully Blanchard. Tully Blanchard. Not that I didn't love him before, but Tully Blanchard's the guy. You know, we talk about the guy. Is he the guy? Is he not the guy? Tully Blanchard, you're the guy. Or you're at least the guy who makes the guy look good, which is just as important.
Yeah, you're going to enjoy the War Games match because he's in that too.
Oh, my guy.
So,
I like this Tully Blanchard. I got to watch more of him.
Just curiosity, have you seen the 92 War Games match from
the one with Zbyszko? Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That one I have seen. That one I think was a match of the week relatively recently.
Okay, all right.
Well, the War Games match that we're talking about, that Biff has talked about with the Road Warriors and all that, yeah. That's a match I'm even going to go watch because
it's that good.
It's that good. It's one of those matches I would love to. I could watch 100 times and find something in each time. Yeah. Find something different.
Really, the whole '87 Bash pay-per-view is fun in its own way.
There is, you know, we look at wrestling from, you know, my time that I started late '60s into the '70s through the '80s, '90s, and into now, and there is still things today I find that I like. I know it's not for me. I know it's not made for me, but I look at there's one wrestler today that catches, like, you know, like you said, George, you saw her debut at WrestleMania. You know, even her pacing on the side of the ring, you can't keep your eyes off her, and that is what you need in wrestling. Yep, she has it.
Charisma, man.
Ronda has it. I look forward to every one of her matches. It's like I'm hoping if I miss it, I'll go watch it on DVR. I'm going to watch it on TiVo. She's got a match with Ruby Riott tonight. I want to see her kill Ruby Riott.
I'm going to tell you a match that I think Ronda Rousey is going to have, and it's going to be kind of a shocking match because people aren't going to expect it, but it's going to be amazing when it happens. Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler are going to have one of the best matches in women's division history when that finally goes down. They're going to tear the house down.
I mean, if I had the pencil, I would turn Shayna heel on Ronda.
Exactly.
I would too.
Yep.
Like,
or and you know, it would be WWE's version of Nikki Cross versus Asuka.
Oh yeah.
You know, that would be the way to book it. Is you know, Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey have a feud go on that requires, you know, 2-3 matches, and the final one has to be a last woman standing match.
Yep.
Speaking of booking, not wanting to toot my own horn here or anything, but who was glorious calling the Kings of Wrestling reunion this week?
That would be you. Whoa, wait a second, my friend. Let the record reflect that you drafted Cesaro, and I suggest to you why not throw in Chris Hero. So,
and what happened last weekend? They reunited.
Yep, exactly. Job well done, my friend.
I don't recall requiring any help to make that decision. Do you, Taker?
All he did was suggest it to you. You're like, yeah, that's fine. I'll take it. So yeah, the suggestion was made.
Oh, oh shoot. Damn it. I muted the wrong person. Oh crap. LL, unmute yourself. I was trying to mute Taker to keep him from giving credit to George.
Taker knows. You know what, Biff? And that's on you for making fun of the Cubs an hour and a half ago.
But
deserve that.
the thing is I also know.
You can't put me in timeout, pal. I have button here.
I also know that George made that suggestion.
It's out there. It's out there on in tape.
That's my girl.
Well, don't worry. I'll kick George's ass on Thursday for everybody, and there won't be any need to talk about shenanigans. It's 1 versus 3, guys, and if you're listening to this show, you know where the greatness lies. So I'll trust in you to make the correct call.
Yes.
The greatness lies with me because I'm the Stephen A. Smith of podcasting. So I've been told.
I'm the Stephen T of this podcast. Thank you.
Well,
very much.
you know what you are, Biff, is the Max Kellerman.
Kiss my ass. I'm not Max Kellerman. I'll be Skip Bayless before I'm Max Kellerman, and I ain't Skip Bayless either.
It sounds like Mad Max Kellerman. You know that does suit you, Biff.
No. I have too much. No, if I'm anybody, I'm Peter Gammons, just with a younger facade.
Yeah.
I'll be
Bob Ryan, right?
I could be Bob Ryan. I could be Bob. I could be John Clayton. I could be Buster Olney.
Dan Shaughnessy.
He's a little bit too superstitious for my liking.
He could be Kirk Herbstreit.
What about Jalen?
You be Kirk Herbstreit.
Yeah. Ooh, Kirk Herbstreit. Yeah, you know he got all the women at Ohio State.
Yeah.
But that's Ohio State.
But Ohio State hates it now, so you're good. Should we get out of here?
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah, this is turning into a clown car. Let's wrap up.
Turning into a clown car?
Hey, you shut your dirty mouth.
Let's wrap it up, Biff.
All right, Taker, where can they catch you during the week, my friend?
Well, I've made my return to the Daily today, late this evening, so you can find me on K-Side there, and maybe in the Nightly tonight. Don't know yet. You can also find me on Twitter at Takers_Minion. You can also find me every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central on Shooting the Breeze, except on days of the Big Four pay-per-views, which is the next one's coming up is Survivor Series, which will start at 10 Eastern, 9 Central. So that's where you can find me.
LL, where can they find you during the week?
They can find me on Twitter at Windstorm64, and they can find me right here at Connoisseurs of Wrestling every Monday night.
And George, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Snapchat, or Instagram at Giatsavis, G-A-T-S-A-V as in Victor E-S. You can listen to me, in addition to listening to me on this fine show, you can listen to me every Thursday, 9, 8 Central, on Two Guys, One Sport. My show's Twitter, with more information, is at Two Guys, One Sport, the number 2 and the number 1.
Biff, where can they find you at?
Well, when I'm not at the bar, you can find me over at Cage-Side occasionally. I'll pop in and piss some people off and leave. I'm generally in the daily and nightly thread. Biff Kensington is my handle there. I know it's hard to remember. I'm also on the Twitter at RealDealBiff. That's D-I-L-L like the pickle. Why? Because screw you, that's why. All our contact information is down. I am a violent little asshole right now. All of the information for our contact down in the info box, or as John Green calls it, the doobly-doo. Going to throw out some quick plugs here. Throw out plugs to all of our sister shows that we'd like to give some love to, of course, on Thursday evenings. I believe it's 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central.
That is correct, sir.
Two Guys, One Sport with crazy Chris Colgan and some curtain jerker reject. I don't know.
Yeah, some boisterous Greek.
Some no-name jabron from somewhere out in the Midwest. They found a scrub to lick Crazy Chris's leftovers. So be sure to check.
Hey man, you know what? I could have. You know what? In all sincerity, In all sincerity, I could have a great, great life and not be anywhere near the cool badass that Crazy Chris is. So that's how. Hey, man, I can work like a dog to try to be as much of a badass as Chris is, and not come close, and it'll still be a hell of a ride. So
listen, I'm not going to blow sunshine up your skirt. I'm not going to treat you like. No, it's the expression. I'm not going to blow sunshine up your backside. I'm not going to treat you like the reject. That role's already filled by Adam Rice. The serious, I love you, Adam. In all complete seriousness, I completely kid. Two Guys, One Sport is absolutely one of the best wrestling podcasts I listen to, no matter who I'm listening to. I would put Two Guys, One Sport up there with anything that Bruce Pritchard does, anything that Conrad Thompson is involved with. I try to make it a point to tune in every week, and you really should too. It's one of the best 2-hour periods you'll spend during the week just listening to guys talk about wrestling. George and Chris, you have an amazing show that we all aspire to match quality-wise. And so anytime I joke about that, it's completely in jest. And we've had so much fun, George, with you coming on board the Connoisseurs. It's been, just an amazing run the last couple of weeks. And we're so looking forward to where the show goes from here with you on board. So don't take any of my pandering and my cheap heat for seriousness. You are very much a valuable part of that show and this show.
Well, I appreciate that. Your check is in the mail, first of all, for those kind words.
It better clear this time. That's all I have to say.
and episodes like tonight are why I love your show. And it is, and I mean all three of you. How else would I be able to have the motivation or incentive to watch Tully Blanchard get a chair stabbed into his eye if it wasn't for the Connoisseurs of Wrestling?
See, it's good, wholesome family fun that brings all the kids together.
It's fun for the whole family.
Eye stabbing, snake bites, and all sorts
maybe
of stuff.
Fun for the whole family if it's the Manson family, but still,
Well, we are a twisted little group of peeps.
But sincerely, thank you for the kind words, though. They do mean a lot. And Chris and I have, I'd like to think we have something special going on, but in spite of my contributions, not because of them.
Hey, George, what do you guys got going on Thursday?
We are stealing an idea from you. We have a draft. It is Chris, myself, a guy from North Kakalaki, Biff,
damn Skippy Hippie,
a friend of the show, Don Sal, and friend of the show, MDS. The five of us are doing a fantasy draft. It's pretty much the same rules as the one we did the past few weeks, but in order to be eligible, the wrestler has to have wrestled at least one match in 2018. So it's a very modern draft.
I see.
I'm turning MDS into my personal plaything, so you may not get the full MDS back on Saturday there, Taker.
I'm sure he'll do just fine. And on that note, it's 9 o'clock, and we need to jump out of here.
Oh, I got to give you your plug. Guy that can't shoot the breeze plug. That comes your way. I know you gave the plug, but by God, I'm going to give a plug too, because damn it, I can into these things as well. Shooting the Breeze, the godfather of podcasts at the Cage-Side Seats extended family of shows. Almost going beyond Cage-Side Seats at this point. TakersMinion, Doc Sinju. Check them out Saturday morning. George and Chris, check them out Thursday evening, 9 p.m. on YouTube. Check out Greg the Hold and myself Thursday morning, 10 a.m. For Grounds for Development. Had a lot of good support over the show for the first 3 weeks. Looking forward to another fine week of shows this week. Full Metal Matt, check out Ruthless Aggression Era podcast Friday evenings on YouTube. Just a lot of good content from a lot of good people. But you stick with us and we'll never lead you astray. Get all the wrestling talk you need during the week, and then your wrestling history Monday night, and whatever crazy perversion I managed to get Doc Sinju to laugh about on Saturday. This is episode 21 of it's episode 22. Excuse me.
Yes, it is.
Episode 22 of the Connoisseurs of Wrestling is our October Hall of Fame induction episode for the Road Warriors, Hawk, Animal, and Precious Paul Ellering, one of our favorite acts. Someone we all miss very dearly in Road Warrior Hawk, but very glad to have Animal and Paul Ellering around. still today. Hopefully we see more of them in the future. And we'll continue to bring you that great history content. We love wrestling. You can tell. We started off talking about the Road Warriors, and somehow we went everywhere from Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard to The Undertaker and all points in between.
Yep.
That's just what we do here, folks. That's what we
just
do.
a regular Monday for us, guys.
That's what the connoisseurs do. So for all of us, for TakersMinion, LegendsLover, George Asavis, and Biff Kensington, I am Biff Kensington. Apparently there's 2 Biff Kensingtons now. Joy to the world for that one. We will see you next week with a brand new episode of the Connoisseurs of Wrestling. Have a good one. Be safe, be kind, be excellent to each other. Take care. Thank you to the Pope, presidents of the African republics, president of the 5th Galaxy, the commissioner of the New York City Police Department, Steve Gutenberg, the Ghost of Schneider, Alan Alda as Arnold Vidic from The West Wing, and Bugs Bunny. Thank you all. Good night. Godspeed.
Good night, folks.
God bless. Thank you, America. Thank you, Canada. Thank you, Djibouti. All of our listeners in South Africa and Ireland.
Oh, please, just end it.
Our listeners.
Eritrea.
Good night, folks.
Good night.
Please stop listening.
Good night, everybody. Seriously.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week.
Yep.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Good night,
Have
everyone.
a good one. Fare thee well.
Jesus.
Okay, maybe I should stop the podcast now. Okay, Adam, your team's stuck. Bye.